Some people are worried that fasting can make them lose their hard-earned muscle mass. Is this true? And if so, how can we prevent it? Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about a topic that I get asked a lot, and it's about fasting. Does it cause muscle loss? How much do you have to eat in your eating window to prevent it from happening? Excellent question. So fasting, to outline, it's a popular way of eating that involves abstaining from food for certain periods of time, usually ranging from 16 to 24 hours, sometimes more. Many people use fasting for weight loss, health benefits, spiritual purposes, stuff like that. So when I'm talking about fasting in this situation, I'm saying it's not starvation. It's not depleting your body to the point where you have no body fat left, no substrate left, no muscle glycogen. That's something else. I'm talking about intermittent fasting, a deliberate way of eating, controlled, timed way of eating to cycle in and out of a fasting and feeding period. Myself, I've tried intermittent fasting as well as intermittent dry fasting for a period of 4 years. The dry fasting was a much shorter stint. I didn't see a purpose for it for me personally, but it is a very effective tool for a lot of people. I've also worked with hundreds of clients, different ages, genders that have tried it and given me their feedback from a personal, anecdotal point of view. So you've got the 16-8 method, 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of feeding. You've got 5-2, eat normally for 5 days, eat a lot less for 2 days. OMAD, 1 meal a day, pretty much a 23-hour fasting period on a daily cyclical manner. Alternate day fasting where you eat every other day. A little bit harder to follow, but some people do use that. Let's get to the main purpose of this question. Does fasting cause muscle loss? The short answer is it depends. It depends how long, how often, how much you eat, what you eat, and how active you are. If you're in a position where you're fasting for a week, not eating anything, probably depriving yourself of a lot of essential nutrients, you've got low body fat, you're a marathon runner, yes, you're going to lose a lot of muscle. You know, it's a dose-dependent response. Many others online will misguide you and say, oh, you know, I've done this and it's great for me and all of my clients. Well, yes, you've got a limited subject group. What I'm trying to express here is I want to be transparent across what I find to be the overall summative consensus of fasting and muscle loss. Now, fasting for less than 24 hours is pretty much unlikely to cause significant muscle loss. What you'll find is you extend that beyond that point, you end up really digging into your reserves of muscle glycogen, circulating amino acids in the blood, stuff like that. Your body is depleted as hell. When you begin to deplete muscle glycogen, say for example you had 400 or 500 grams of muscle glycogen within your body at any given time, a bigger athlete will of course have more. When that's deplete, the proportion of amino acids stripped down from the protein on your body will then be used as the energy substrate. And that will happen at an exponentially larger or greater rate, depending on the length of time that you're doing this intermittent fast. When we look at studies in bodybuilders, we often measure, I say we, researchers often measure the nitrogen retention in the muscles and work out how much muscle they're keeping on their body through the protein synthesis signaling pathway. Now, if you're fasting once or twice a week, perhaps on a Sunday, I don't know, what have you, whatever day you choose that to be, you'll find it probably won't make a significant difference in terms of your muscle gain. But I would say is the more advanced you become, the harder your body will fight you in order to adapt to the stimulus you're giving it through resistance training and things like that. The reason why I say this is because if you're limiting your food intake to only 5 or 6 days per week, you're missing 2 opportunities to maximize the anabolic signaling. In this instance, if you have to do 1-2 days a week of fasting, I'd suggest you actually at least increase your protein intake on the other days where you're not fasting. Now, you might divide your typical average daily intake over even the week by 7, then times that by 5, and that will give you the amount you need to take in over those 5 days. You'll then divide that by 5, of course, assuming you're eating over 5 days and fasting over 2. And what you'll find is your protein intake over that time will go up maybe, depends how big you are, 10, 20, maybe even 30 grams to ensure that you've got the protein within your body to offer itself as a substrate if needed. What I might even suggest is actually listening to your body. So what you might notice is the days you're not fasting, where you're in a mass deficit in terms of the food grams that you'd usually take in, actually try to eat more. If your body says, I'm hungry, my muscles are sore, I'm tired, I'm not recovering from my workouts, my metrics in the gym aren't improving, eat a bit more. That's a perfect opportunity and example of a reason to perhaps increase protein intake. Now, if fat loss is your goal whilst maintaining muscle mass, what I'd probably suggest is even just decrease the fat intake across the whole week. Therefore, fasting won't be necessary. You'll be able to eat every single day. And I'd argue that's actually probably the least stressful thing you can do in this situation. Now, if you're going without food for 2 days of the week, well, yeah, your appetite's going to go up on the other days. So you get a staggered kind of intake, if that makes sense. Your appetite will increase around training and decrease when you're sedentary. Now, if you're, for example, having a training day on Monday, then you're fasting on Tuesday, maybe not so wise. You might find that you won't have the muscle building nutrients such as protein and fat to actually increase that protein muscle mass accrual, if that makes sense. So you won't have the energy, substrate, the food, the mass to put in your body to replace what you may have lost. Therefore, you take yourself backwards in terms of your muscular development. I want to make it clear that fasting is not an excuse to eat junk food or processed food on the days where you are able to eat. Not very wise. Remember, your fat cells, your body's entire system is made up of the food that you feed it. Essentially, what you eat is what you are. I'd say as an important rule of thumb, make sure you hit your protein grams on the days that you are eating. Remember what I said about binge eating and eating junk food. Very, very, very common amongst people that do fasting. Eventually they fall off. You can't always practice fasting if you're in certain social situations. It's going to make it much harder for you. So what I suggest to people is keep consistent with that protein intake. And my typical recommendation is somewhere between 1.5 and 2 grams per kilo. Now, when I say per kilo, that could be your lean body mass, or it could actually be even higher than that. There's some people out there that just train all the time, perhaps they're long distance runners. They'll break down a lot of muscle tissue. I have probably about 10 other videos, a bit like this, that kind of explain the protein intake, the macronutrients in very great detail. I also cite some studies to support my claims in those. I'd suggest checking them out if you get the opportunity to. Now, should you train while fasted? Good question, fair question. My kind of response is, how do you feel? How is your performance in the gym? If you fast then train and your performance is excellent, keep doing it. But make sure you've got something to measure it against. So you're pitting up your fasting days training alongside your feeding days training. Do this perhaps a week either way, different body part splits, work out which approach is best for you. And ultimately, if you're trying to build muscle, you're going to need more food. So I probably wouldn't recommend fasting in this instance. I get some indication that people often want to try fasting or do long fasts for particular reasons. I don't know, to resolve health issues. And I think, well, if that's your goal, why would you be so focused on continuing to build muscle? You know, pick one goal and stick to it. That's what I say to a lot of people. I find oftentimes in consultations of people trying to do this, and it just doesn't work. And my position statement on how many days a week to train is based on a lot of experience of anecdotes I've had from other people that have had certain experiences. So it's not just my own clientele, myself, other anecdotes from masses of people that other people have coached. And I'd say at most anyone would want to train is something like 4 days per week. Some people can do 5. Perhaps you're stripping down for a bodybuilding competition. Maybe you can't give it your all in a particular session in the gym. Maybe you don't want to do long cardio. Maybe splitting up your workouts. So you do your 4 workouts worth of volume or training intensity, load, what have you. But you split that over 5 sessions rather than 4. In which case I'd say, you know yourself. If you can train really hard 5 times per week and recover, improve, get better, perhaps you don't fit within my guidelines recommendations. Completely possible. But I'm speaking broadly, probably amongst a few hundred people here. 5 times a week is a bit too much for a lot of you guys. Now, in contrast to that, I know people that train once a week, get great results, retain bone density, build or even retain muscle mass, lose fat at the same time, and it works fine. You know, what you suggest to people is just to do the bare minimum possible to get the best result. Imagine you're taking a paracetamol tablet to get some pain relief. Okay, have one. Well, ideally, don't take any. Not medical advice, but ideally, if you take one and it has the effect, why then take 2? You know, next time you require or feel like you require a paracetamol tablet, you take one. You don't go balls deep and just do 2, 2, 2, 2, you know. One tablet does the job. It's the same principle applies with training. 4 sessions, 3 sessions, 2, 1. Whatever allows you to progress and get better in terms of building muscles is what's going to be the most important thing. So to quickly summarize what I've said, make sure fasting is appropriate to you. Consider the impact it may have on any binge eating tendencies you may or may not have. See if it fits into your lifestyle and see if it allows you to at least retain the muscle tissue that you spent a long time building up. You won't lose muscle overnight by any means, but what you might find is the more you throw at it, you know, deprivation, things like that, your recovery goes down, sleep goes down. The more you deprive yourself of these nutrients, the greater that deficit will be. Therefore, you'll have to work harder to dig yourself out of it. Tell me below in the comments what you found with fasting. Was it useful to you? Did you find it stressful to the body? Was it great? Let me know. I'm interested to hear. And if you do have any questions on this, please book an affordable consultation that I do offer at compositionconsultant.com, where I offer carnivore, keto, pretty much any dietary approach, plans for nutrition, training to help you go along your way to improve your body and health at the same time. Thanks very much for watching. Build muscle and lose fat on the carnivore diet.